All right, welcome back to Honest Voice. I am Todd.
I'm Carolsue. So today we are pulling the mask off of something that fools almost everyone, including the person wearing that mask.
Yeah, we've sort of been intermittently talking about this. I mean, we talk about insecurities, we talk about overcompensation, we talk about how we have to react or put on a facade in order to not look what society has called weak, even though curiosity is like a super strength, and you can just be engaged in that. It does so much when it comes to an interaction. But the key thing that we're talking about this time is that why is it that when we don't understand something, when it's unfamiliar, why do we think it's a threat?
True.
Yeah.
It seems like it's become so socially important to know everything about everything, even though that's not physically possible.
Exactly. So what ends up happening is in those threats, a threat provokes fear. So that fear, like we've said before, is usually the base for anger.
That's right.
So a lot of people, to overcompensate for that fear or to hide that fear, they will present it as anger. So what that anger ends up looking like is superiority.
Absolutely.
So people have to dominate the situation. If I don't understand it, I'm not going to act like I don't understand it. I'm going to start talking louder. I'm going to start talking more authoritatively, more knowledgeably, and things like that. So
that was really good.
You like the
I did. I really enjoyed the
acting. So
So what we know about this mask in particular is that the louder it is, the more boldly people state their awareness, their knowledge, their mastery of a concept, the more fear or insecurity they're actually hiding.
So a very famous psychologist, Dr. Alfred Adler, actually identified the superiority that is a mask over insecurity, that the people that are the most fearful are sometimes the loudest. And we've used in our books, and we've said in some of our shows that, insecurity is very loud and confidence is very quiet. And a lot of times I've gotten in situations before where somebody has said something like, I've been out with the guys or something like that, and they're saying stuff, and I'll look at them. I don't ever interject, but I can't help my face sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah, and they'll be like, what? And I'll be like, man, that just came off a little arrogant. And they'd be like, no, man, that's confidence. And I'm like, well, actually, confidence is in here. Arrogance comes out here.
Yeah, confidence tends to be quiet.
Yeah.
It's sure of itself. It's comfortable. It doesn't need to prove itself to other people.
Exactly. Yeah, when we've said that before, if you need an audience for anything, that is an indicator that you might be lacking some coping skills. Those are indicating that there is some level of insecurity where you need to feel superior or having that attention. And I know this. I mean, I know this firsthand. I used to show off in front of others. I was a class clown in school because, as I brought up before, with my childhood, it was nothing but chaos in the house. So anytime I could actually be the one who makes people smile, or get that attention and not feel so what I was being made to feel, like useless, a burden, or any of that kind of stuff, I would bite into that stuff. And of course, as a younger person, that contributes to your development of your personality, which just grows as an adult.
Yeah.
So things that we're talking about right now, once again, we don't call out. We're not here to put anybody down. We're just here to identify these behaviors. So hopefully people can make changes, and then people that are affected by these behaviors will know how to handle them. We'll know how to help others get through it if they want to do that, or just know how to protect themselves from getting that annoyance from somebody mansplaining rather than just saying, oh, there he goes again. See, there's a massive difference, and it all happens with the ABCs, once again, the beliefs that we create in a given moment. So our whole purpose here is to hit both sides, hit the person being affected and hit the person that does this kind of stuff. But once again, it's not putting anybody down. This is stuff that we have learned and that has been put on us, and then we have developed as an adult into what we are today.
Yeah, and I don't know if this has ever happened to any of you guys, but I know that when I am in conversation with someone who I'm intimidated by, whether I think they're more intelligent than me or they have some amazing talent I don't have, I will find myself bragging or communicating in a way that's not normal for me. And it's not until I leave that I'm like, oh my God,
where did that come from? Yeah.
What even was that?
Yeah. Why did I say that?
Yeah. So it happens to all of us. You get into a place where you feel intimidated, and sometimes you want to demonstrate or put on that mask that you're also very strong or very smart or very creative or whatever it is. And then you end up just walking away feeling like, well, that wasn't me. I wasn't comfortable with that.
Yeah, or you put them in their place and you make a condescending remark that embarrasses them. Yeah. That's the other side of the same coin, actually. You're trying to be superior to their superiority in that moment. And once again, that's programming. I talked about how the reducing my reaction to road rage, it started as soon as I recognized that I had a little bit of control over it. I flipped it to go, hey, you're not bothering me. But then I'm like, I'm still being controlled by them. I'm still reacting to what they did to me. and I'm still retaliating. You know, and that, like I said before, those ideas of revenge, getting back, having the last word,
one-upping, all of that.
All of that comes from punishment in childhood. When you have a dominating individual that coercively controls you or punishes you in some capacity, physical or psychological, those reactions, those responses grow into adulthood and become that boss that's a bully, that individual who, when they come in the room, they expect people to notice them. All of that stuff comes from effects of being handled a certain way in childhood. And it doesn't always happen in the house. It can also happen in schools. It can happen in your peer group. Isolate it where it is. And once again, we're not shaming parents because even the parents that do that, they got it from their parents. And it all comes from love. You know, it all comes from protection. It all comes from keeping somebody safe, but also it's the only thing they know. But once again, like we say, we're not justifying any kind of behavior or anything. We're just telling you where it comes from. As always.
We want to shed light on it so that we can all understand how we got here, how these behaviors have manifested, and what choices we can make that are a little bit healthier and support better communication.
Exactly. All right. So simple examples that you see all the time is when you're talking and somebody says, I already know that. That's one of them. And those that always need to give their opinion, like they have to provide input. They have to be part of that group because they're like, I know things too. You know, and that's showing an insecurity. And there is a difference. I know a lot of people who are watching this are saying, well, I give my opinion and I don't have a superiority complex. It's like, yeah, there's context for
always.
If a bunch of ladies are talking about something that's lady related and then a man comes in and says, well, you know, I don't think that's starting whatever follows that, you know, it's like, yeah, that's sort of an indicator. That's context. You know, he's trying to contribute, but also at the same time, it's because he feels left out. He's got to say that he knows something, which is probably going to be wrong. Sorry. But in a lot of cases, we hear a lot of complaints, and then, of course, we read a lot of BuzzFeed articles. So we get a lot of our communication tips, believe it or not, from people's complaints in BuzzFeed and readers' feedback that watch the show. So, guys, don't do that. Sorry.
So this behavior can also show up as one-upping. So you start to tell a story, and then I'm sure this has happened to all of us, where someone will jump in and immediately try to start telling what they think is a more exciting story. Oh, well, you think that's something. Well, let me tell you about this.
Yeah, and that has to do with inclusion, but it's also because people think that when they're contributing, that it makes them feel safer. So
it does.
Once again, a lot of this has to do with just subconscious feelings. You know, when I contribute, then I feel like I'm part of the group.
I'm part of it, exactly. I belong. Which is an evolutionary desire all the way around humanity.
Yeah, connection. I mean, and that is what Honest Voice is all about, is, you know, building the communication skills to increase that connection that you have with your peer group and others.
Yeah. We know that attention-seeking behavior is an attempt to feel safe and connected. People want to one-up because they want to know that even though you're sharing a story that demonstrates your value, they want to prove they have value too. So they need to jump in and contribute so that they feel like they're part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I hate to say it, one of the biggest telltale signs is having to have the last word.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's a human construct.
Really,
you know? And once again, you create the idea that if I say the last thing, then I win. You know, and that whole thing, I mean...
What are we winning? What's the prize?
Yeah, exactly. What is the win? And all of these things, when you look at them, you really have to step back, and it's really exciting. Well, for nerds, I guess.
We get excited.
Yeah, we get excited about it. But when you get into these podcasts and you start learning this information, because like I said, this all started with crisis intervention training and how to communicate with somebody that is being irrational right now and how to de-escalate them. Words to say that calm people down.
Yeah.
It was mind-blowing. So when you start learning this stuff, you start catching yourself in normal everyday conversations and asking yourself, where did that come from? Why did I even need to give that input?
So true.
And why have I been doing this all my life? And it's so interesting once you find out that you can lose the insecurity, but the behaviors will still exist because they're programmed in you. So that's where we talk about in our earlier episodes about awareness is key.
Yes.
You know, you have to be aware first, but then you also have to put actions on it. And there's a lot of people that I've come across that have gotten very irritated with me because it's one thing that a lot of humans, we're also human, in case you're wondering. A lot of people...
That was amazing.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people will identify these things and then it'll come out again. And, you know, if you're in a peer group and they're like, oh, you're doing that thing again. And you're like, I know, I'm working on it. The annoying thing that I do is like, okay, well, what are you doing?
What's the plan?
Yeah, exactly. What's the plan? And I've had a lot of clients when I worked in the mental health field that would say, yeah, I know, I'm working on it though. I'm like, okay, well, what are we doing right now? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you're working on it, that means something proactively is going on. I heard professionals in the field. Oh. These are like LPCs and social workers that, I've asked that question. I'm like, you seem a little edgy when you're interacting with somebody. And they're like, I know, I'm working on it. I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing to work on that? And they get really irritated with me because they realize they're not really working on it, especially when it comes to like anger stuff. Like my family has told me that I blow up too much, but I'm trying to fix it. It's like, okay, what are you doing? And we think we're doing stuff just with that awareness, but it has to go somewhere now, which is really important.
And let's be honest, sometimes the I'm working on it statement is really just kind of a lie to get you to stop asking me questions about what I'm doing to work on it.
I think a lot of us want to believe that we're doing something. You know what I mean? We want to think that we're working on it because we've got these justifiable motivations in our family. Like my family told me that I snap too much. So, of course, we have that empathic desire to reduce any kind of hostilities or irritation or concern that our family members have. So we do want to bring it down, but we're not actually doing anything about it, which is really common. It's really common. It's something that you're going to catch yourself with now. You're going to be like, oh, man, I'm really not doing anything about it. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
So let's talk a little bit about where this kind of behavior comes from. What makes us mansplainers, womansplainers? What makes us...
Womansplainers.
We're out there. We know it. We're out there,
right,
for sure. What makes us the kind of folks who want to top somebody else's story or get the last word? The engine tends to run on two different possible sources.
Yeah.
The first is fear, plain and simple. We are afraid that we will be seen as inferior, as weak, stupid, whatever negative character flaw you want to put on that. And we're doing everything we can not to look less than.
Exactly. And when we've programmed ourselves also that at the end of these kind of interactions where we think we come out on top, that we're like high-fiving ourselves and thinking we won. So it's like maybe a dopamine ping after that kind of experience. So that reinforces it just like anything else. So you get in that mode and you don't even know you've gotten put in that mode where you want to win the conversation because it felt good.
That's true.
Even though it's not a thing.
Yeah.
We made it a thing.
We made
it's
it
not
a thing. So fear is one driver. The other driver is reward. So we keep using behaviors that have given us something, whether it's that internally created feeling of superiority or validation, whatever it is, it has helped us to stop conversations we didn't want to have. Having the last word means that we aren't having to challenge ourselves, or maybe we don't have to question whether or not the information we're giving is correct or relevant. And so it continues to feed that behavior because it gives us something, it rewards us.
Exactly. And these are feelings. These are feelings that come from the beliefs that you need to be superior in some capacity or part of that group. But when it gets to the extremes, when the arguments get heated and the irrationality occurs, the behaviors that occur in those moments are not excusable. We want to say that. Treating somebody harshly, one of those variables again, I know I say that like I gave that example of that person that was yelling at me over the Zoom, and I could have very easily said, you're being very disrespectful right now and I'm not going to tolerate it. But honestly, and I'm trained in this, we are trained in this. So it's going to be a little bit on the extreme for us, like people getting pretty provocative, and it does not affect us. But for those of you who are just being initiated into this stuff, we want to make it very clear that nothing gives anybody an excuse to treat somebody else poorly, especially if it's provoking fear. And I think we made that very clear in our last episode.
Yes.
That is not something that we tolerate. That's one of those things that we talked about in mental health. We understand and condone the feelings, but we don't tolerate the behavior.
That's right.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And similarly, we want to understand the intentions that people have when they engage in these behaviors, ourselves included, but we also want to highlight the impact. How does this influence our relationships? What do we lose? How does it make communication more challenging so that as we understand it, we can replace these habits with better communication styles?
Yeah, exactly. In every scenario that I've been in where somebody was escalated, sometimes the embarrassment runs deep and it runs long. It's been going on for a long time. So once again, remember that just pointing out their behavior or just calling them out or talking them down or trying to insult them with their own behavior is not going to fix it. Just very calmly say something like when they're saying, well, I just get angry or I just get excited in these situations, say, you know, I get that, but the behavior has to stop.
Yes.
In a lot of these cases, I've made jokes about it and lightened them up. I'm like, now tell me that same thing that you yelled at me about earlier. I want you to tell it right now.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. I get it. I see where you're coming from. I'm like, no. I want to hear it. I want you to tell me the exact situation that you just told me. I want you to tell it to me like you're explaining it to me.
Yes.
Not like you're just yelling at me or screaming about something that's really bothering you. I want you to explain it to me like you want me to write a book about it or you want me to understand it. And that always comes out differently. And then they're like, well, yeah, I guess I could have just said it that way without the emotional content.
Yeah.
On the emotional content, the negative emotional content never gets your needs met. Mm-mm. And this is something we've talked about in a lot of trainings. I don't know if we mention it much here, but it always blows my mind that people yell at customer service reps. It's like you're there to get a problem fixed or to explain a problem that you have, and you really think that intimidating this person on the other side of the counter is going to get your needs met. And we do it all the time. I used to do it. I would make like a sarcastic comment. It's like, why can't you guys just find competent staff or something like that? You know, this is a long time ago. I just want a long
my
time.
brain's going, I don't think I've ever heard you say that, but I'm sure it's back there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, especially if I felt that they were being provocative toward me.
True.
Like, well, what do you expect me to do about it? Well, what's the problem with getting competent people here? It's like, I'll get you back for your little making me feel stupid in the moment. I mean, that's just common out there. You know, of course, we know that's not an issue now, but negative interaction never, ever gets the outcome that you want. And even if you think it does, it did not give you the quality of the outcome that you think you want. There was one thing that I used to tell my clients when they started getting rude. I said, I want you to know there are things I have to do based on my job description, and there are things that I do out of the kindness of my heart. Now, if you want that to change where I'm only doing what I have to do, you can continue acting that way, you know, because as my job, I can't just say, you know, you're not my client anymore.
That's right.
Yeah. So
I would fire you.
Yeah. But that was to teach them that they have to find ways to control themselves to interact socially. So that was part of my job as a case manager, to teach them coping skills, communication skills. And this was before I even knew about crisis intervention style.
Oh, sure.
But we learned a lot of de-escalation techniques, not as in-depth as crisis intervention taught us, but even our education through the counseling tracks in college taught us certain communication styles, basic ones. And one of those is that constant positive regard for our client. So that sort of was our basic keeping us in check kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's, of course, it also helps to remind folks, hey, this actually benefits you if you can approach these things instead of with an air of superiority or demanding something or being condescending. You'll actually get your needs met better, like you were saying. The customer service agent is probably still going to meet your need even if you're a jerk, but they're not going to do the same quality of assistance that they would if you're being kind and polite and patient.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a massive difference. I've had people where I'm interacting with them and it's like, hey, I am so sorry to bother you. I saw this on the internet that you had 5 in stock and now I can't find it at all. Do you think you could help me? And they'll find it or they'll look it up and they'll say, you know, that's a mismatch in our inventory. And then they'll be the ones to say, would you like me to call another store?
Exactly.
But they don't have to do that.
Nope.
And we know that. And they're only doing that because of what we're giving them first.
So what you'll find is that customer service reps will go a lot further to meet your needs if instead of stomping in and shouting that your website said you had 5 of these in stock and I came in here and there are none in here. That's not going to motivate someone to stop everything else that they're probably doing to help you until you get your needs met. But if instead you go in and say, hey, as Todd said, this is what I thought was here, can you help me? Then you might find that someone will be able to go an extra mile to get you what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just want to say one of the main reasons this is so common is because it's so common. You know, that is, I know.
Well said.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that we don't analyze. And that's what the research of what we do. We go in and we analyze that stuff. It is so common to see this kind of behavior that you can't help but adapt to it. The problem is that you are also influencing people in your circles. And that's something you have to keep in mind. And you're reinforcing it in yourself. So like we said before, when you reinforce that behavior, it becomes part of your natural responses to things.
Yes.
And it's sort of why we're here, is to try to change those natural responses and show you that there is a better way to do this. You know, the only reason that a lot of us are not kind all the time is because of the punishment. It goes back to the punishment. It's like, well, I don't want to do something if I'm not going to get recognized for it, or I don't want to do something if they're not going to apologize too. People that go for like decades without speaking to their family.
I'm so glad you brought up that example.
Yeah, that is because of that punishment, that shame that we have been forced to feel, and we've developed from childhood to adulthood, where, well, I don't want to apologize because they might just say, I don't accept it.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And we don't want to go through that because we have also identified that to be humiliation.
Yes.
Which is also another insecurity, because we can't handle that potential for rejection, because that punishment is a form of rejection. That's where you have been, you know, I reject you and I'm going to punish you and I'm going to dominate you in those moments. So that's where all those feelings come up. And if you can just get into the, like we brought up the example about holding the door open for somebody and not saying you're welcome when they don't acknowledge you, and just be thankful that you did the kind thing. An apology can be the catalyst for something that might take a little longer because of how normal society is.
So true.
So initiate your apology. Say you're sorry. Like in my case, I've talked about how toxic, you know, my childhood is. I don't mind being apologetic, but I don't want to resume those relationships either, because they were toxic and I know they would never change.
Yeah.
There is a reason in some cases to cut some relationships off so they don't continue to affect you into your adulthood. But keep in mind that all of those things that prevent us from being kind all the time have to do with the same exact things that we've been talking about that are problematic. We get into those mindsets where I don't want to be the only giver, you know, around a bunch of takers and stuff like that. But the key is, just like we say about everything else, is be kind, be giving, but also
manage it.
Exactly. Don't let someone take advantage of you. Be kind until they do, and then very unapologetically, unemotionally say, I can no longer maintain this relationship because I'm doing all the work and you're sort of making it tough.
Yeah, that's where the importance of boundaries comes in all of these communication tips, that we don't want to stop being kind and we don't want to stop taking the first step to try to mend a relationship if it's valuable to us, but we are going to keep our boundaries up. And this is why boundaries are so critical. We always want to be the kind person. We want to extend the first apology and give people a chance to reflect on it, absorb it, think about it in their own time. But boundaries are healthy because they help us keep our comfort level. And so while we're not saying you must stop this behavior, because we can't control what other people do, we are saying if this behavior continues, I can no longer engage in this relationship. That's my boundary about what I am comfortable with.
Yeah, and I want to add on to something Carolsue says. We can't control what other people do. Also, we shouldn't.
Oh yeah.
So that's something, you know, that's a point that a lot of people miss. We don't really like to use any kind of condescending terms, but you know what society has deemed the Karens and the Kevins out there, that there's no advantage to try to dominate another individual to do what you want them to do. Like there's no reason to engage with another person that's doing stuff that is not directly affecting you. People that walk up to other people and ask them what they're doing here or why, you know, I mean, we see videos like that. Yeah, because we watch this stuff because we're constantly in awe of human behavior.
Yes.
But those that like try to ask people why they're in their apartment complex that aren't the manager or anything like that, it's like, one, you have no authority. And two, there's only two outcomes here. And that's they try to ignore you, or there's a major confrontation that pulls law enforcement into it.
Yes.
So it never helps to try to tell another human being what to do. And now think about this very carefully. What if somebody did the same to you? If you're a person that does that, think for a moment. If somebody came up to me and said, what are you doing in this apartment complex? You'd probably go a lot nuttier than the person that, you know, a lot angrier than the person who is probably completely thrown off by, why is this person who I don't know asking me this question? So think about those kind of things. These are the kind of things that just continue this ongoing animosity that we just keep throwing back and forth. And that's in the nature of call-outs, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit more in a moment.
Yeah.
Those call-outs never help. They don't help change a behavior. So that's the intent.
That is the intent.
Is to try to change a behavior. Sometimes try to shame a person because their behavior is inappropriate, but it doesn't change it. Especially, like, I always think about the things like when I see celebrities and they're dealing with a paparazzi or something like that, and the paparazzi says something really provocative and they're starting to walk away, but then they stop and they look back and I'm like, no, don't do that.
So close.
That's what they want. And you think on the receiving end, and this goes for everybody, not just celebrities, but celebrities celebrities, if you're out there watching this, Josh Hartnett, like I said before, he dropped out because of this kind of stuff. You're not going to make this person change their behavior. They are doing exactly what they are intending to do, and that's to try to provoke something out of you so they can film it. And you stepping back and saying, you guys are vultures, or you guys are the lowest of the low, or whatever they want that. They are ready for that. You're not the first person to tell them that. And they know. And believe me, either bounces off of them or goes right over their head.
They're just waiting for you to make a snarly enough face that they can take a picture of your snarly face without context and post it all over the internet.
Exactly. I remember this one time, something happened. I don't remember what it was, but we had this big assembly in the military. You know, Master Chief had everybody out there, and it was something pretty egregious. The Master Chief went on to say, this is a terrible thing. It's egregious. It should never happen. And I don't know how people can look at themselves in the mirror after exhibiting this behavior. And he went on and shaming, and like none of us knew who he was talking about. Of course, it was probably not addressed with the person
those are the worst
who was the problem. But I went to the Master Chief afterwards, and I'm like, you have to keep in mind that some people do these terrible things and they look at themselves in the mirror and smile. You know what I mean? So your shame rant is actually what they want to hear right now. They want you to talk down because they're in their mind giggling. It's I got away with this.
They won.
And I irritated. So none of those tactics ever bridge the gap. And the person who maybe was trying to make a statement, it's either they liked it or now they're even more irritated by it because you called it out. Now they're going to double down and they're going to make it worse. That's sort of why we inserted this particular episode right after the anger and the lies episodes, because we want to talk more about the communication that shuts people down.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what we lose, what it costs to communicate in a way just to feel stronger, smarter, better than someone else. Fundamentally, we lose honesty. So people who are frustrated and tired of being one-upped, being talked over, having someone just have to come up with a better story than they've just given, will just stop contributing. So we lose honesty in our communication. It's also contagious, for lack of a better phrase. So if these are the behaviors that we're exhibiting at home, then our children watch us do this. This is how they learn to communicate because they see the examples that we set. And so they're not learning honest, fair, equitable communication styles. And unfortunately, over time, these communication patterns turn into our identity. So if we're always trying to be smarter, funnier, more experienced, kinder than the people around us, then we train other people to not contribute in these conversations. And it's much harder to change these behaviors the longer they persist within us.
Yeah, and it's funny, you said the word kinder, and I was thinking about that. You know, we're talking about superiority, condescension, things like that. But I made this joke one time when I was working at this one location that a lot of people don't always look at the impact of their kindness. So what I see is it's like advocacy is a big example of it, which we're going to talk about in a moment, is how you're advocating for somebody. But if you're being mean to a lot of people in that advocacy, and I always equate it to, and this might be a silly example, driving up to a traffic light and say, you can see it's far away, and you like slow down to let somebody out, but you've got 8 people behind you, and you just sort of abruptly slow down just because you want that feeling of, yeah, go ahead, you can come out, because you know they're having a hard time getting across the light. And you think, I did something good today, but you just made like 9 people angry back there. So that's that kind of thing where I have to assert, this is what I'm going to do to make myself feel good, and I have this control, you know. And if the people in the back are honking, I've seen people have some certain sense of pride in that moment of like, well, I'm letting somebody out, you know, and you didn't, but you really don't realize that you just really inconvenienced 8 to 10 other people that you made stop abruptly, or you could even cause an accident. So I'm just bringing it up to keep in mind that even in the midst of doing kind things, you could be contributing to something not so kind. Yeah. Just something to keep in mind.
Yes.
So I work with a lot of advocates, and a lot of times I'm trying to talk to them. I'm like, but your message is getting lost in your attitude. You know what I mean? And that's something that always bothers me. And even this month, it's Pride Month. So we posted a thing on our Facebook page, you know, about communication, and it got like 3 likes. So, you know, it's like advocates want to hold their ground. They want to be forceful. They want to be superior, just like we're saying, but they don't realize that it doesn't get their message across as well as it could. In our history here, I researched that out of all of the protests that go on, the ones that were the most violent or most egregiously problematic had the least value. They had the least impact. Yeah. And it's very interesting. And, you know, I encourage you to research this. If you're a hardcore advocate that likes to beat other people down in order to get your message across, take a look at it. Your technique could use some improvement, for lack of a better word. So Pride is a perfect example. And this is something that I was watching some kind of nerdy show, and this man asked a question, and it had to do with gay rights. And the person who was being asked that question immediately went into this, well, I don't like the way you phrased that question. I can see that you have homophobic issues. And it's like all of that stuff right there, it just destroyed the opportunity for collaboration in that moment. And the person was honestly asking a question. I definitely don't ever want to offend anybody. But that's another thing, like a lot of times we put this term microaggression on things. But microaggression in a lot of cases comes from ignorance. I mean, it comes from literally the lack of education of a cultural issue.
True.
And what we do is we beat that person down rather than educate them and say, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this, but what you said is very offensive to people in my culture. And I'm going to tell you why. They just immediately get into this, I don't appreciate your microaggressive comment. You know what I mean? It's immediately met with anger, which shuts that communication down. And once again, you don't stop it.
No.
Like all of the people that, when it comes to racism, when it comes to all of the issues where it's an in-group and an out-group, whatever those may be to the person, they always want to use that superiority to put the out-group down. It's never, how can we understand that group better and maybe find some kind of bridge in some capacity?
Yes.
And communication is about all of that. We have a lot of titles on our shows that seem psychology-based, but all of this stuff starts in communication. And
It does.
It's amazing. And I don't want to get too excited here. So, yeah.
So what we really want to emphasize is if your tactic for trying to educate someone includes emotionally shaming language, then you've already set the tone for that person to push back. So instead of being able to hear your message at all they're hearing is, well, this person that I don't know very well is telling me that I'm wrong and I don't like that, so I'm going to search my brain for all the reasons I'm right.
Exactly.
So we've lost the ability to find common ground. So we at Honest Voice want to emphasize bringing people in.
Exactly.
Maybe starting a sentence by saying, I didn't always know as much about this culture as I do now, but isn't it as interesting that? And then introduce a fact. So you're coming from a place of, hey, I used to be unaware of this. Let me just share this with you because it helped me and maybe it will help you. That's a much better framework for helping people shift their thinking about a certain group, whoever it is, LGBT population, a certain race, a certain religion, whatever it is. That's your best bet for actually getting people to lean in and want to learn and understand better.
Yeah, one thing you have to keep in mind from the out group, so to speak, as we're trying to just put it in perspective, is that with the majority or the in group, these are generational feelings. Like,
that's true.
If you stop them and say, why are you so afraid of that group?
Yes.
They won't know in that moment. It's really interesting. And I've done this. I've watched, what is it about that group that bothers you so much? And then what it comes down to in most cases is that's just the way it's always been.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's the way my grandfather talked in the house. And then my mom and dad made jokes about it or something like that. Once again, not making any excuses here before you throw back on that.
Just explanations.
Just explanations. Is if you look at the culture of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and so on, those, like we've said, are the formative years. So the people that are making these influences, they were programmed to feel this way. And until something comes their way that makes them, like I always say, want to listen,
yes,
which would mean kind communication bridge instead of being put down again.
Yep.
Think about it, just reinforces what they're already thinking. It reinforces that fear that when you snap at them, they're like, well, I don't have anything to do with that group anyways, because look how mean they are all the time. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you want to put somebody else down, there's nothing we can do about that. But if you truly want to change minds and change lives, you have to change your communication. And that should be a t-shirt.
I love that. So many t-shirts we're going to have by
I
the
know,
end
we
of
got a lot
this
of t-shirts.
series.
So what happens is in our minds, the way it has always been becomes the way it has to be in our minds. That's the way we start thinking. It's like, well, that's the way it always has been. And change feels like an intrusion.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, it feels like somebody is trying to change my values, trying to change the way I think, trying to modify my world without my permission in this moment. And it creates a little bit of fear in that, which translates into aggression in some cases.
Yes. So what we know about humans over time is that we fear what we don't understand. That's a very common thing.
Yeah.
So it takes a little work and a little effort to lean in and try to understand something that's new to you. And let's be honest, in a lot of cases, we can be a little lazy about trying to understand new things. And it's much easier just to say, oh, I don't understand that group. Again, whether it's the LGBT community, homeless individuals, I work with homeless folks, so they often also get categorized. A certain religion, a certain culture, whatever it is, the easier route is just to dismiss it, make some uneducated judgment and move on. But
uninformed and uneducated. No, that's fun.
Yes.
But I mean, uninformed comes from a lack of education around
That's
it.
Exactly
so
right.
yeah, so let's say both of those.
We'll say both, uninformed and uneducated. What we find that is if you do make that effort to lean in, talk to folks in the group that you don't quite understand. I can't tell you how many times we've had volunteers come and work with our outreach team, and they've left at the end of one day of outreach and they've said, you know, before I got here, I really thought all homeless people were lazy. They just didn't want to work. And now that I've spent time with folks, I see how resilient they are, how every story is different, just like the rest of us. And so they leave after just a little bit of exposure to the group they were so uncomfortable with a new understanding and a new perspective. It really is that simple, truly.
Yeah, well, the same thing happens when we did our cultural awareness. And this is a 1-hour lecture that we did in crisis intervention training.
So
Carolsue and I did together. And it talked about the LGBTQAI plus community, and it identified how that group has been disenfranchised, how that has affected communities, families, because this is where, since we were teaching the law enforcement, this is where they would share with us, and some cops would come to us. I mean, the whole reason we created that cultural awareness lecture was because we had a pair of cops that we're very near and dear to, were almost in tears about a young boy being put out of his house because he, as they say, came out during dinner and the father completely rejected him. And we talk about how in that moment, and this was a very affluent household that had, the kids had good grades. There was another sister in the house.
2 whole parents living in the same house.
2 whole parents. They took vacations together. And then as soon as the young boy comes out with this information, the father completely rejects him, which is just, once again, it doesn't excuse it, but it's a fear-based projection now into extreme irrationalization. But the damage it does to that kid, I mean, his whole worldview has now shifted immediately. He went from confidence in his environment. He went from believing in unconditional love from his family.
Yeah.
Now all of those things were lies.
Yep.
If there's one little variable now makes you think I'm a completely different person than the person you've known for the last 18 years or 17 years in that case, then what else am I supposed to believe? And then you take that and into the suicide statistics that accompany the LGBTQAI plus community. Those are the things that really make you step back and see that this is something that shouldn't be anybody's business except the individuals involved in these relationships. So this goes back to, I guess, the Karen's thing when you think about it, is that when people don't like what somebody else is doing in their life that still is not affecting them. I'm not even going to say behind closed doors. I'm going to say, I'm going to say in the public or anywhere that is literally not affecting them, then the problem is not in them. And I just want to be very clear about that. And I think it should be pretty obvious to see, even for the naysayers. Of course, that's why you watch these in private, so you can be like, I don't like the fact that they're right now, and I'm not going to admit to it.
That's right.
But at least we gave you the information. We're doing our part one piece at a time.
Yes.
So we've sort of covered a lot of this. You know, we're talking about the call outs, how that doesn't change minds. We're talking about the fear-based response and the need to be superior. And it's real easy to put down an out group, you know, because you see them as a minority, but none of it does any good. And like we said, that mindset is showing a massive insecurity on the part of you, when it's really a group of people that have their own business that you don't need to mind. I did not know how to say that in such a way that where you wanted to say, mind your own business.
They have business.
It'll cut down on all the animosity. So when you get in that situation where, say, you're an ally and somebody makes some kind of homophobic remark or transphobic remark, ask them, rather than put a label on them and say you're a homophobe, which does absolutely nothing except allows you to show some kind of superiority in that moment. Ask them, say, you know, what is it that's really concerning you? Ask a question or promote curiosity instead of a defensive. Don't be the wall that they're pushing against. Don't be the thing that justifies their problem, because technically when you do that, you are becoming part of the problem.
It's true.
Because they have an animosity, say they're racist, then calling them out about that thing just makes them double down now. And you are contributing to that. In some cases, you're taking a situation where it's just basic racism or sexism or whatever it may be, and you are now reinforcing it. You're adding anger to it now because you're saying, you're like this. And they're like, well, you don't tell me. Well, now you're making them an angry racist or an angry sexist person.
It's really fighting fire with fire. So curiosity is the antidote to superiority. It's that simple. So if someone makes a statement to you that they don't like a certain group and they're expressing that as superiority, and you say, well, you're a transphobe, then you've just expressed your superiority. So we're fighting fire with fire. We're not going to get to a place where we can have that conversation and say, tell me what drives those feelings for you. I am curious. That's a much more open door for someone to walk through and maybe realize that some of these feelings are baseless or based on wrong information.
Yeah, I know a lot of you won't want to see it this way, but a lot of times when you're dealing with a bully, you become a bully also.
It does happen.
Yeah, so you're just waiting to see who knocks the other one out is really what you're looking for. Yeah. You're in a fight, you're in a verbal fight, and you're just waiting to win, and you're reinforcing that behavior in them instead of being true to your cause, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the whole reason Pride Month exists is to get the word out, because people that have been disenfranchised, they've been hurt by others, and they've led, in some cases, some pretty problematic experiences have occurred in their lives because of these individuals that are angry and try to beat them down for this 1 month that they get to celebrate.
Yep, it's all about awareness. That's all it's about, awareness and education. So as we do here at Honest Voice, we'll close out with some things to reflect on this week. So first we want to reflect, I want you to think about one person whose superiority makes you uncomfortable. And every time they enter a meeting at work, you're like, oh man, I know I'm gonna have to hear from this person. We're gonna have to hear their opinions. And instead try to go the empathic approach just in your mind and say, what is it they might be afraid of? What is it that makes them uncomfortable or makes them need to perform that way?
Exactly. There's all those kinds of memes, like we're all fighting our own battles and stuff like that. But the one thing we don't realize is that, just very simple right here, a lot of the ways we go about these things are just as mean, if not meaner in some cases, in trying to combat these mean things. So nobody ever gets to see an example of what it looks like to actually be kind in the midst of people that are very uncomfortable in their own skin and want other people around them to feel that same discomfort in some cases.
Yeah. And we also challenge you to turn the tables a little bit and reflect on your own places where you demonstrate superiority, where you feel like you know more about a topic and your feelings are 100% right. And I want you to really think about what you could be masking. Are you uncomfortable with a certain group or a certain person or a certain practice, and you're covering that up with superior statements and superior behavior? And just think about how that's impacting you.
Yeah. If you find yourself really trying to push a point where you're like, you need somebody to believe you, ask yourself why. Yeah, why am I so upset about this person having a difference of opinion or not believing what I'm saying in this moment? Because that's more on you than it is on them in this case. You know, everybody has the right to be like, to just be dismissive. It's like, yeah, that's cool. I don't care.
Yeah. This is sort of the main tenet of the Honest Voice philosophy, which is that any information we provide is freely given, freely ignored. So if you feel strongly about a cause and you want to share new information in a kind way that might change someone's perspective, do that. But if they choose to reject it, that's okay too. That's their choice. You've done your part to extend the information. Your job as an advocate is now done.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, like we started off with this show, we talked about how the unfamiliar provokes fear, but that comes out as superiority and understanding. Just remember that the loudest person in the room is usually the most insecure. And instead of pointing that out or calling them out or laughing at them or talking behind their back or keeping it going, try to bridge that gap and say, hey, is something bothering you about that topic? Be curious. Don't point out their behavior. And if they ask, no, why? It's like, I don't know. You just seem to be like really assertive about that, where the way we see all of this stuff, when people are trying to be loud in the moment, it's like, yeah, you're hiding something.
Yeah.
It's more out of fear than it is out of actually educating people. Because in that moment, when you're talking, is it because you're educating or is it because you need to be the center of attention?
Yes.
So when you have that person in the room and they're the loudest person talking, just keep in mind that's a mask for fear. And rather than arguing with them or calling them out on the spot or embarrassing them like a lot of people do in a meeting, just talk to them.
Yeah.
Talk to them. And maybe you can ask, hey, why are you so emphatic about that information? What's up with that? You can probably tell them the way you come off or you deliver, like we're saying, we want people to want to hear this information. The way you're coming off is sort of turning people off and your message is getting lost in that.
Yeah.
You can provide that kind of mentorship or advice in those cases if you want to. But the main thing is just don't attack them.
Yes, exactly right. So if you're trying to change someone's thoughts or behaviors or beliefs, what we know for sure is that with 100% certainty, shame won't fix it. So as Todd said, introduce some insight you might have. Be curious about the reasons why they feel the way they do and give it a shot. But be okay if they just decide they don't want to hear any of it. At the end of the day, that's their choice and you've done your part to try to provide some enlightenment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sticking with us. Next week, we're going to dig a little deeper into where some of these superiority ideas come from.
Absolutely,
We
yeah.
love to know the why so that we can figure out how to improve it. Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Happy Pride Month.
And thank you so much for being with us. Have a great day.
Take care.